On today's Community Wednesday, let's break down the classic Grau 556. The Grau was one of the first meta weapons. It was easy to use and it had great iron sights, meaning you had plenty of attachments to choose from. But over time, the ranges have slowly gotten longer, so are iron sights still good enough to compete? And is the Grau in general a good choice for today's meta? The classic build has the monolithic suppressor, the Archangel barrel, tac laser, commando foregrip, and 60 round mags. So let's take a look at its stats, starting with mobility. It has a really great ADS time of 240 milliseconds for a long range weapon. Its reload and reload at times are also pretty good at 2.7 from empty and 2.15 if you leave one in the mag. And of course it has a mag cap of 60. Its movement and sprint speeds are interesting. Its movement speed is slightly higher than an average Modern Warfare long-range weapon, but its sprint speed is on par with them. But its ADS strafe speed is average for all long-range weapons. Its sprint out and attack sprint out times come out also at an average 270 and 390 milliseconds. Its aiming stability comes out to 1, which is absolutely great for long range. Its bullet velocity is 1,176.5 meters per second, which also is really great for hitting those long range targets. And its rate of fire comes out to a pretty high 12.21 rounds per second or 733 rounds per minute. So it gets a mobility score of 35. Now with the recoil, it's an interesting situation. It's extremely easy to use, and you could easily use this up to 140 meters, if you could see your target. But it's all going to depend on your FOV. When I play at 100 FOV, it is really difficult to use this past 100 meters, mainly because the target's going to be really small. But if you're one of the people that has to play on 80 FOV, you can probably stretch this out to 120. And I'm assuming it's going to get even harder to see if your FOV is up to 120. So it'll get a recoil score of somewhere between 40 and 42, depending on your setup. Now for its damage. It has a drop off at 46 meters. In the first damage range, it is not going to be doing very well in any of the categories. However, in the second damage range, it's going to get a below average score, which is fine for a long range weapon, especially when you get one headshot in the mix, you can bring it down to an average score of 937 milliseconds. However, do note that the below average and average scores are around a second long. So that's why it's going to be very important from now on in 300 HP modes to use very accurate weapons, because if you're not hitting that target, your TTK is going to be going up dramatically. So it gets a damage score of 30. And when we add up all the categories, it gets a final score of 105 to 107. Don't be alarmed by the lower score than usual. Ever since the switch to 300 HP modes, the scores have been going down quite a lot, especially for long range weapons. Before, a lot of them used to get below average scores in the first damage range. Now it's looking like they're going to be way below average. And this is kind of a good thing, because now we are really getting a separation of weapons. Things aren't good in every single situation. Now you do have to specialize. So you gotta figure out what you want to pair weapons with. And that kind of speaks about the viability of the classic Grau. Sure, you can use it to a pretty far range, but it won't get you as far as you want due to its lack of a weapon sight. And with its below average performance in the first set of TTKs, it's not going to be something you want to pick. Sure, if you catch people off guard, it's going to be doing pretty well. But in a straight gunfight, you better be hitting all your shots and your enemy better not. The second that they use a better weapon, it's going to be a loss for you. The Grau was balanced around 250 HP mode, and it was a very balanced weapon. You could use it both at close range and long range. But the switch to 300 did limit its abilities. So this does mean that we're going to have to relearn a lot of our weapons, figure out what they're good at and what they're not. But I'm here willing to help, making sure that you guys aren't using weapons that are going to make the game really hard for yourselves. So that was a classic Grau 556. Have you used it recently? And if so, what'd you think about it? Do you come to the same conclusions that I did? And if there's any other weapon, build, or part of the game you want me to break down, let me know. You may see it on the next Community Wednesday. Thanks for watching.